Hey, this is Witch's Hex, and before we begin, I just want to make a note that if you are looking for how this Virtual Boy capture setup works, I describe it at the beginning of my Beat the Game category run, so there'll be a link to that in the description. Make sure to check that out if you're curious. Alright, let's get into the run. So, Jack Bros is an action puzzler for the Virtual Boy, and this category is going to make use of the hard mode code entered on the title screen, as well as the passcode to play as the secret character Pixie. So in this game, you go to 6 areas, each composed of a number of floors, increasing as we go. You pick up these keys, and you move to the next floor. Hard mode increases the number of enemies, all sorts of things. You'll notice at the top left, we have our health, that counts down over time. Managing managing resources in general is a big part of this run. So keep an eye on that little, if you got to see it, that little orb that spawned where the bomb was put in a second. That gives you 3 hits where you're impervious to damage. That's really good for damage boosting because it also cancels out the animation. And having 2 orbs here will actually let us 2-cycle our first boss here. So this boss likes to duck and dive into corners. With this character, we can't get a 1-cycle, but with orbs, we can, tank a couple hits and get the 2-cycle. We only need 1 orb for that, but 2 orbs is a little bit of extra safety. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do it in just 1 cycle. So that was kind of our little tutorial floor. Up next is Grim Reaper's Palace. Or Grim Reaper's Castle. And already you can see, because we're playing on hard mode, there are just enemies everywhere. Something to note is that enemies can hold keys, so we have to kill them and take their keys. You may notice the bottom right-hand corner of the screen has a little has a little radar for where all the keys are, so that's how we keep track of moving it around, because enemy patterns are random, so we need to keep an eye. This floor has a lot of damage boosting, so it's quite lucky that we wound up with some extra orbs. So what we just picked up there is an invincibility potion. It's one of our favorite items. It allows us to move fast and kill everything on touch. You'll notice there I made a slight mistake that's going to cost me a second. It's alright though, it doesn't take too long. Pixie has the highest movement speed in the game. So something to note is, Pixie's attacks, unlike the other ranged characters in this game, Pixie functions more like a classical retro video game character. Pixie can only have 1 bullet on screen at a time. So we're actually going to try to distance ourselves from bosses, such that we get multiple shots in, because otherwise we're going to, waste shots that go through and we have to wait for them to get to the other side of the screen. This boss is the hardest one to do it to, because this is the most mobile boss in the game. So yeah, we beat that one. Then we get to go on to the Temple of Nightmares. 1708. It's a bit of a meme. the reading the numbers. Anyway, something you'll notice I do on floors is that no matter what, I will always attack, with a few exceptions to when I desperately need some safety. This is because you'll actually get a time bonus if you clear a floor without attacking. There's 2 ways to get time bonuses. The first is to do that. The second is to kill a number of enemies really fast. That second one you normally just get anyway, because it's faster than, waiting for the enemies. But with the number of enemies we have here, it shouldn't happen on very many floors. Anyway, ironically enough, the time bonus cutscenes are slow, so we tend to avoid them no matter what. So we have a new enemy type coming up here that's a bit interesting. So these enemies have shields and they function like Dark Nuts in Zelda. We're actually just going to damage boost through them and kill them from the back because we can. If you try to attack them from the front, it won't do anything. So the only other way is to lure them around edges and get them at the sides, but it's much faster just to damage boost through them. So we got another invincibility potion here. Enemy drops are random, but on hard mode, there are actually so many enemies that you get really consistent luck, because odds are everything's going to be constantly dropping. So this boss is Vampire. Vampire's a bit of a pain. He'll teleport around randomly. He's always in the middle of the room, but he goes up and down, which means that our positioning can be very off. He's easier to get from the back. You're supposed to kind of dodge the bats, but it's a lot slower. I actually wind up taking him from the side here, just because of how I got pushed around. Anyway, this boss, the important thing to remember about this boss is to just get hits in while you can. You can kill the bats while Vampire is invulnerable or off-screen. So it's better to avoid bats as much as possible, although sometimes they'll crowd around you in ways that you can't really avoid. Like what happened right there. The floor is moving, which, you know, adds a lot of challenge to this boss, but we got him down. Goodbye, Vampire. One, two, 4. Didn't mess that up. Right on to Dragon's Belly. So the first floor on Dragon's Belly has the most exits of a room in the game. So the gimmick here is that that you pick an exit and you go through with it and you try to pick the best one, which we will. Anyway, what you might have just noticed me do there is I used a Jackstar. Now, every character has different effects when using Jackstars. On bosses, they always do damage. But on levels, they do different things. With Pixie, the Jackstar will spawn an invincibility potion for you, making hers the best Jackstar, you know, the best Jackstar effect in the game, and we'll use it on a lot of the longer floors. Because we don't know how many Jackstars we're going to wind up with, it's, because we don't know how many we're going to wind up with, it's important to kind of have a flexible mindset with where to use them. This run, we're actually doing really well on Jackstars. To have 7 of them at this point is really lucky. But we haven't encountered too many floors worth using them on yet. Especially because a lot of floors will have potions already on them that we'd want to use them on, like this one. Free orbs is always nice. Orbs are underappreciated with people who aren't too familiar with the game. You would think the potions and the Jackstars are the best items, but orbs flexibility, as well as, you know, just being able to do free damage boosts, it, you know, adds a lot. I mean, with Pixie, Jackstars are also really valuable. Anyway, there's a puzzle here. It would take a really long time to do. You're supposed to kind of go all the way around to the bottom, disable both of those laser traps, and then, you know, quickly hit the laser trap at the bottom, but it's faster just to take a hit on the laser trap. Anyway, here's what might be our hardest boss, well, second hardest boss in the game. This boss will basically become invulnerable a lot by moving things. This boss will launch that very hard to dodge attack, which, you know, leaves you stunned. Not that it really matters, because the boss is invulnerable while spinning anyway. We're going to use Jackstars for our other effects here. We're going to try to limit that, but because of how useful they are. But with this boss, Jackstars are a good damage source. With Pixie, Jackstars do more damage than you could do, even with the animation speed over time. So if you have them, they're worth using, but you might want to save them for later. Ideally, I would have saved them more for later, but considering the boss pattern I was getting there, the faster move was to just use them. And we still have a lot of them, so it's okay. Anyway, Mecha Fortress now is where the difficulty starts to really ramp up. So this enemy has a key, which is annoying. So we're actually going to use a Jackstar, mostly just so that we can take out this enemy, but also because this room is very long. This will leave us with only 3 Jackstars to go, and there's a lot of rooms left we're going to want to use them in, not to mention we're going to want to have a few reserved for the final boss. That's actually okay. This room, there's a spare Jackstar. With the way it paths you, you have to pick up 1. Well, I mean, you don't have to, but it doesn't cost any time to pick up 1. But if you really need one, you can go pick up a second. With Pixie, it's almost always worth doing, unless you have very specific luck. Anyway, we got orbs, so I'm trying to save them there. So this room is a bit of a couple room, is like a couple rooms you'll see in hard mode. There's these laser traps. So long as you don't touch them, they can't hurt you. Anyway, you're supposed to do this bit of a puzzle where you take out those things, and kind of walk up without taking a hit, but that's slower than just walking up, so we just walk up. There's also an extra Jack Star here with Pixie. Again, with Pixie, it's worth getting these most of the time. So, here's a fun fact about those laser generators. They will always drop an item. So they're one of our most reliable sources of materials. Because we're in hard mode, these paradises, that's what these little blocks that come together, are very, very close together. But with Pixie speed, we can dodge most of them, and even when we can't, it's faster than doing it the other way. So, this is a room where you're supposed to go around and dodge those paradises, but it's faster just to run through. We actually got an invincibility potion. That's a very good place to get one. So because we got that, we can actually just zoom through and not have to worry about the damage boosts we would normally do there. Anyway, these enemies are called Cyclops, and they're the most annoying enemies in the game. Not only do they have the most health of anything in the game, but they also hit the floor and stun you for a couple seconds, so I took them out where I could. On hard mode, so many of them spawn that you're going to be stunned every few seconds there. You kind of need the speed. Another lucky invincibility potion. This run actually has very good luck. It only you know, despite what it might look like, luck only really because, you know, you can really deal with any loadout the game gives you if you're familiar with the game. Luck really only plays the factor of maybe a minute. Anyway, we're gonna use a Jack Star here. 1, to take out these things because they're holding keys and we need the keys. But 2, because although they don't go over although they don't go between floors when you fall, when you teleport up a floor, they actually, you know, they actually continue forward, so we get to continue using them. Anyway, you're supposed to do something else there to kind of disable both laser traps without taking a hit. It's much slower than just doing it. So anyway, these enemies here, we've actually seen them once before, but they're poltergeists. On normal difficulty, they always have 50 health, which is the biggest health drop. On normal, they can also hold keys. We know which ones hold keys by the mini-map. There's 2 ways to deal with them. One, you can trick them at corners and kind of... They'll run away from you. They'll always run away from you, but you can actually, you know, move your hitbox such that you're considered on the tile next to them without being there, but your projectile will still go after it. So you can trick them at corners like that. You can also lead them into corners. It's usually faster to trick them at corners, but in some cases they'll just run into dead ends on their own. So we call that corner tricking. So here's a little fun room. We've got an invincibility potion, and we're going to do our movement in a very specific way to lure all of the ghosts into this corner right at the exit and pick up all the keys at the same time, which is very satisfying. You'll notice me getting a few attacks in there at the last second just to make sure I don't accidentally hit the time bonus, because we're pretty good on health. Anyway, we're pretty much always going to use a Jack Star in rooms with those type of enemies. This room seems oddly empty. I guess I can get the key and go, oh my gosh, it's a soldier army! So yeah, I love the soldier army. There's always 2 sets of soldiers that kind of come after the army. Again, it's faster to walk through them. So we have a ton of health. This boss is not too bad. This boss has a lot of health, but it only has 2 attacks. It has this fire that does 30 damage, and it has this thing that tries to push you back, but you can still move forward with it. So really, you just want to maintain the right distance to be able to get multiple shots. The floor will come up and do damage. We have so much health here that the fastest thing we can do is just take whatever hits we may. Because we had really good luck on this floor, so we're on very high health. Occasionally, you might have to use a Jack Star here, but this boss isn't so tough, and I can't stress enough how you want to save the maximum possible number of Jack Stars for the last boss. Crystal Palace is a very difficult level. If you've ever played this game casually, even on normal mode, you might have quit playing when you got to Crystal Palace. Not only is Crystal Palace, you know, over, you know, somewhere between a half and a third of the game, but it's hard, and if you're playing casually, death in this game does make you go all the way back to the start of the floor. Or the start of the level, rather, so it can be real penalizing. Although, fortunately, we have a lot of Jack Stars here. And if you're familiar with this game, you shouldn't be dying. Again, you can really handle any luck, no matter how good or how bad. There is no such thing as a like unwinnable seed in this game. Anyway, goblins are my least favorite enemy type because they move around randomly. So when they're given keys in rooms like that, it can get hectic. Anyway, here's a block pushing puzzle, but what's unique about this block pushing puzzle, and the fact that we just saw what happened there, is absurd luck. So the wizards teleport randomly. And what they'll often do is they will teleport there you go. They will teleport behind blocks. On normal difficulty, this room only has one wizard, so it's unlikely it'll get in your way, although it still happens. But on hard, a lot of floors are... Yeah, we took the exact same room from normal, but we added like 5 million wizards in it, so we're getting a lot of wizards here. Like that, if you get hit by a wizard's attack, it does 5 damage. If you touch it, it does 30. So it's usually worth... It doesn't matter if you get shot, but you really don't want to be, to walk into one, which is why I was avoiding it. Anyway, we got goblins here. They hold keys. Nothing else here really matters, so I'm just trying to get back to the exit, but... Unfortunately, those things which, you know, always turn at corners, but they don't turn consistently in consistent directions, they didn't give me the best patterns. So this room's mean. You have spike traps that deal 10 damage under the, or deal 20 damage, excuse me, under these dark zones. As well as there's goblins everywhere, so they lay traps. You can't see them. You can hear them out, but honestly, it's faster to just damage boost through them. This puzzle is something, I suppose. So basically, 2 of these teleporters will take you to keys. The rest of them will just dump you back at the start. They'll dump you at that bottom area where you can teleport back up. You kind of just have to know which teleporters it is, otherwise it's trial and error. Anyway, we usually have low health when we get to this floor. We actually have higher health than average. This floor has a lot of laser generators, which is really good. Because remember that laser generators always drop something. So we're actually going to pick up all the drops here. The 30 health time bonus is unavoidable. It would have been slower to just wait around waiting for it to go away. But yeah, we got really good resources there. We got to clear the room super fast. We got some orbs. We got like over 100 health. That's about average for what happens there. We also got a Jack Star, which is pretty nice. We might have gotten 2. Anyway, so we're gonna need this health for later. So we're gonna do this floor. There's another chance you get to kill ghosts. We call that floor the Ghost Hunt. But this floor, and this only happens in hard, and normally you don't get this. This floor is a lot faster for killing ghosts, because it's a much smaller room. Anyway, there's a teleportation puzzle here. But the faster thing to do is to use a Jack Star and just barrel through everything in the room. We actually got another Jack Star doing that, so that's fun. And just exit. The game actually gives you an invincibility potion over here, so we're going to pick that up first. Now, we're actually doing phenomenally on Jack Stars. That makes 9 right there. 9 is the most you can hold. So, we're in really good shape here with 430 health and this. It means... Now, as a reminder, nothing is, undoable. But with this, it means we're going to get to take a lot more of the fast and not as safe strats. We're going to get to do things like use a Jack Star in this room. This room is one of those rooms where you want to use a Jack Star, but you can't guarantee that you'll actually be able to use one. This room, too, it has Cyclopses, so we're going to dash over and kill the Cyclopses before they can bang the floor. Unfortunately, there is a third one, so we're going to get that one to bang the floor a couple times because it's so far out of the way. But yeah, that's a good place to use them. So this floor is called the Ghost Hunt. It's full of these laser traps and ghosts. Lots of good ways to get points. Now, we're going to get these ones because they're right here. But, yeah, we're super, super good on health here. Like, we are in amazing shape to finish this run. You can use a Jackstar here. This is, if you can afford it, this is a great room to use a Jackstar. It's just a lot of walking up and down. And there's some Cyclopses in it. We missed one of the Cyclopses. It was kind of out of the way, but that's okay. So we have orbs here. We're just going to damage boost through this puzzle. Even if we didn't have orbs, it's usually worth doing unless you're on critically low health. So yeah, that one managed to get by us. That can happen. Just went by it. It has some things. There's some free health there, which is pretty nice. We get the orb. We're going to get the last key. You like it when those tomcats, you want them to line up with you. They don't always do that. Anyway, this is the last room in the run that isn't a boss room, and if you've ever played Pokemon Red and Blue, it's a lot like Sabrina's Gym, where you have to figure out all the teleporters. Now, for the optimal pattern of teleporters, the game actually does give you a little bit of an extremely subtle hint here. The best teleporter to take is always the one that's further from the key on the ground. There's a key being held by this enemy with a shield, and there's a key on the floor. The better one is always the one in the better teleporter is always the one far away from the shield. Anyway, here we have our last boss. This boss is rough. We have a lot of health and a lot of Jackstars, so we're in pretty good shape for it. And this is the only boss that's actually different on hard mode than normal. Other than their like appearances, the textures all change on normal or on hard mode. But this is the only one that's different because you have these two spike traps that are, or these two, paradises that are always coming after you. On normal, you only have the vertical one, and this one you also have a horizontal one. So this boss has two phases. The second phase has two attacks. The first attack is these bugs that'll come out, and we're going to try to use our Jackstars when the bugs are out just to save time because you have to kill the bugs. The other is these energy balls. We have enough health where we really can just be tanking the boss most of the time, although we will just try to avoid some hits. No reason to drop this very good run. Now you can lower the paradises up and down. If they won't close on you, then they'll try to travel up and go to a better spot. But again, I want to just be getting hits in here because of how much health we had. I would be doing a lot different movement here if we were on low health. So there we go. That'll be enough to kill the boss. And yeah, time is when the credits fade. And that's actually world record for this category. So I would call that a pretty decent run. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna leave you to the credits music, but I'm gonna cut my mic and stop the commentary here. I hope you have a nice day.